It started the night I realized silence could scream. The kind that fills every corner of a house that's seen too much pain. Too many empty bottles, too many promises that tasted like lies. I used to count the seconds between my father's anger and my mother's tears, as if timing it could somehow control the explosion. But the thing about addiction, it doesn't ask permission. It seeps through walls, through laughter, through love itself, until all that's left is the echo of what could have been. What if the people who taught you love also taught you destruction? What if home was the first place you learned to run from? I was only trying to survive the storm I was born in, but storms have memory. And one night, it remembered me. Would you forgive the people who broke you, if they were the ones who taught you how to heal? The morning after never feels like morning. It's that gray space between guilt and pretending you're fine. My father used to say, "We're not bad people, just broken ones, but broken starts to feel like destiny when no one teaches you how to mend." I learned to clean up after other people's pain before I ever learned to face my own. Some nights, I'd sit by the window and wonder if love was supposed to hurt this much, or if I just never knew what love was supposed to feel like. Every addict has a language. My mother's was silence. My father's was anger. Mine was running. I thought if I moved fast enough, the memories couldn't catch me. But pain doesn't stay where you leave it. It travels light. They say rock bottom is where change begins. But when you grow up surrounded by brokenness, rock bottom just feels like home. I remember staring into a mirror one night, not recognizing the eyes that stared back. That's when I realized this wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. That night, I packed everything I owned into one small bag. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't die where I was born. Somewhere inside me, a voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, I could be more than what I came from. You don't just inherit your parents' eyes or their laugh. You inherit their ghosts. I didn't know that then. I thought leaving home meant leaving the pain behind, but addiction is smarter than that. It follows in whispers, in cravings, in the way your hands shake when no one's watching. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection and see my mother's exhaustion, my father's guilt. I'd promise myself I'd never be like them, and yet I kept reaching for the same poison they did. It's terrifying how easy it is to mistake pain for comfort when that's all you've ever known. The first time I realized addiction could be inherited, I was sitting in a rehab waiting room that smelled like bleach and hopelessness. I watched strangers check in, different faces, same pain. I kept wondering if maybe my parents had sat in a room like this once, swearing they'd change. The thought made my chest ache. It's one thing to forgive them. It's another to forgive the part of me that became them. Rehab isn't about detox. It's about facing everything you ran from. Every night they asked us to write letters to the people we blamed. I wrote to my mother first, then to myself. My hands shook as the words came out. I hate you because I saw myself in you. When I finally looked up, I realized everyone around me was crying too. We were all mirrors of someone else's pain. It's strange how the mind works. I could barely remember birthdays or holidays, but I remembered every sound from my childhood. The clink of a bottle, the slam of a door, the quiet sob after a fight. Sometimes during group therapy, those sounds played in my head like a record stuck on repeat. The past doesn't vanish. It waits for you to be ready to face it. One night, after lights out, I stepped outside into the cold air and looked up at the stars. I thought about my mother, probably still drinking, my father, probably still pretending. I realized for the first time that maybe they weren't villains. Maybe they were victims too. Of their own stories, their own wounds. And maybe, just maybe, breaking the cycle wasn't about hating them. It was about learning to love them differently. Healing isn't a straight climb, it's a maze with traps you built yourself. After 6 months sober, I thought I'd made it. But the truth is, recovery gets lonelier before it gets lighter. The nights stretch longer, the silence feels heavier, and suddenly you're face to face with every feeling you used to drown. That's when I slipped. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know what to do with the emptiness that came with being clean. The relapse hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just the alcohol. It was the shame that came after. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor, head in my hands, whispering that I was sorry to no one in particular. Sorry for being weak. Sorry for breaking again. I thought about calling my mom. But what do you say to someone still trapped in the same storm you're trying to escape? A week later, I walked back into the recovery center, smelling like regret and cheap vodka. I expected judgment, but instead, I saw Noah waiting at the door. He didn't lecture me. He just said, "You came back." That's what matters. For the first time, I believed him. Maybe recovery wasn't about never falling. Maybe it was about standing up one more time than you fall. That night in group, I spoke about my relapse. My voice cracked halfway through, but I didn't stop. I told them I was tired of pretending that healing was beautiful. It's not. It's ugly. It's crying in parking lots and starting over 100 times. But as I looked around that circle and saw everyone nodding, I realized I wasn't alone. None of us were. After the meeting, I went outside and sat under the stars again. The same ones I'd looked at during my first night here. I thought about my parents, my past, the weight of everything I'd carried. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. But underneath that exhaustion, something small flickered. Maybe it was beginning of forgiveness. Rebuilding your life feels nothing like the movies. There's no music playing when you wake up sober. No applause when you resist the craving. Just long mornings, bitter coffee, and a quiet voice reminding you to try again. I learned that healing wasn't loud. It was steady. Every day I stayed clean was a rebellion against everything I was taught. And slowly, the world stopped spinning. I started to hear myself again. Noah told me to write 3 things I was grateful for every night. The first time I tried, I stared at the page for an hour. Gratitude felt fake when all I knew was survival. But as days passed, I began to notice small things. The sound of rain, the taste of clean water, the weight of my own breath. Gratitude wasn't about joy. It was about noticing I was still here. Weeks passed, and the fog began to lift. I started working in the kitchen. Nothing glamorous, just peeling potatoes, washing dishes, laughing with people who understood the kind of broken I was. There was something healing about routine. It made me realize that recovery wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who I was before the pain took over. One afternoon, Noah asked if I'd speak at a newcomers meeting. I almost said no. My story still felt like an open wound. But then I looked around at the faces of people just arriving, frightened, shaking, lost. And I realized that my pain could be someone else's map. So I stood up and spoke. My voice trembled, but it didn't break. After the meeting, I walked outside and felt the sun on my skin. Really felt it for the first time in years. The world didn't look new, but I did. For the first time since I could remember, I wasn't running from my story. I was walking toward it. And in that moment, I understood something simple. Recovery isn't the end of the pain. It's learning to live with it and still choose life anyway. They told us forgiveness was a part of recovery, but no one said how hard it would be. I could forgive strangers easier than I could forgive myself. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw the person who hurt everyone who ever loved her. But one morning, something changed. I didn't see a failure anymore. I saw a fighter. Someone who had fallen and still found a way to stand. Maybe that's what forgiveness really is. Not erasing the past, but refusing to let it define you. After almost a year, I went home. The house looked smaller, older, like time had exhaled around it. I expected anger or tears, But when my mother opened the door, she just froze. We stood there, staring, both trying to find the right version of hello. I didn't know if she was still drinking. I didn't know if I was ready to care. But I walked in anyway. Some doors, once opened, never closed the same again. Inside, everything smelled the same: coffee, dust, and old pain. My father sat at the table, staring at nothing, his hands trembling slightly. When he looked up, he didn't say my name. He just whispered, "You look like your mother." I didn't know if it was a compliment or a curse, but for the first time I didn't flinch. I sat down and we just existed there together, in silence, in truth, in something that felt a lot like surrender. That night, I found my mother sitting on the porch, holding an unopened bottle. She told me she hadn't touched it in 2 months. I didn't ask if it was true. I just sat beside her and told her I was proud of her. We didn't hug, didn't cry. We just stared out at the street in silence. It wasn't forgiveness. It was understanding. And that was enough for now. Before I left, my mother hugged me. Really hugged me. The kind of hug that shakes loose every secret you've ever buried. She whispered, "Break it for us, Mia. Break the cycle." And I promised her I would. As I drove away, I realized I wasn't running anymore. I was returning to the world, not as a victim of my past, but as someone finally ready to rewrite it. I used to think my story ended when I got sober, but healing isn't an ending, it's a beginning. When I started working at the recovery center, I saw pieces of myself in every new arrival. The fear, the shame, the tiny spark of hope hiding underneath. For the first time, my pain had a purpose. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was helping others learn how to breathe again. That's when I met Izzy. She was fire wrapped in fear. Loud, angry, impossible to ignore. I saw my younger self in her, the way she pushed people away just to see if they'd come back. She reminded me that healing isn't graceful. It's messy and loud and human. I didn't save her. I just stood beside her long enough for her to believe she could save herself. Izzy didn't believe in peace. She believed in running. But I kept showing up. Every session, every breakdown, every relapse. Because someone once did the same for me. Some nights she'd sit there shaking, whispering that she couldn't do it anymore. And I'd tell her the truth. You don't have to do it forever. Just tonight. Sometimes. Tonight is enough. The more people I helped, the more I understood my parents. Their addiction wasn't their choice. It was their escape. I used to hate them for that. Now, I just wished someone had sat beside them the way I sat beside Izzy. Maybe things could have been different. But that's the thing about cycles. You don't break them by blaming. You break them by forgiving. Months passed. Izzy got stronger. She smiled more, talked more, believed more. One night after her final group meeting, she hugged me and whispered, "You gave me back my life." I wanted to tell her the truth. I didn't give it back. She just finally realized it was hers all along. And that night, as the center lights dimmed and everyone went home, I understood something simple and beautiful. When you heal, you don't heal alone. You pull others up with you. I used to think breaking the cycle meant walking away from it. But I've learned that real healing means walking back, standing where the pain began and refusing to let it rule you anymore. When the center asked me to start a new group in my hometown, I hesitated. But deep down, I knew it was time. Time to turn the place that almost killed me into a place that saves others. The first night, I lit a single candle in the main room. I told the new group that this place used to be filled with yelling, broken promises, and silence so heavy it could crush you. But tonight, it was filled with hope. I told them that every story in this room mattered. That pain wasn't a curse. It was a teacher. The light from that candle flickered across their faces, and I swear for a second, I saw my younger self sitting there too, listening, believing. Later that week, my parents visited the center. My mother cried the moment she walked in, whispering that she never thought this house would feel like home again. My father said nothing, just reached out and held my hand. For the first time, I didn't feel like the child who needed saving. I was the one holding the light. And for the first time, we were all standing in it together. Every week, new faces walk through those doors, shaking, afraid, hopeful. I tell them what someone once told me. You came back. That's what matters. And when I look into their eyes, I see the same story over and over. Broken people trying to remember they are worthy of love. The difference now is, I know how it ends. It ends with light. Some nights, when everyone's gone, I sit by the window of this place and watch the light flicker across the walls. The same walls that once echoed with chaos now hum with peace. I think about the girl I used to be, the one who thought survival was enough. She had no idea she'd one day help others find their way home. I smile, close my eyes, and whisper to the quiet. We did it. The cycle didn't win. Love did.